My name is Magnus, and I am 74 years old. For decades, I built homes for others as a construction foreman. 8 months ago, I lost Eleanor, my wife of 52 years, and moved in with my son Jackson and his family. Tonight, at what was supposed to be a pleasant family dinner, my daughter-in-law Amanda suddenly stood up, her face twisted with anger. "You are a burden to this family. Get out!" she screamed. The table fell silent. I felt my heart drop as I slowly stood up. Let me know where you are watching from and subscribe to see what I did next that shocked everyone at that table. I spent 45 years in construction. Every morning before dawn, I would kiss Eleanor goodbye, put on my worn work boots, and head to job sites across the state. We were not wealthy, but we were happy in our modest 3-bedroom home that I had built with my own hands when Jackson was just a boy. My son would often follow me around the house with his toy hammer, helping me with maintenance projects. Those were golden days filled with purpose and love. Eleanor was the light of my life since high school. We married young, had Jackson when we were barely 20, and built our lives around family values and hard work. She was a kindergarten teacher who loved children, but complications after Jackson's birth meant he would be our only child. Perhaps that is why we poured everything we had into him. When Eleanor was diagnosed with aggressive cancer, we faced it together like we had faced everything else in our 52 years of marriage. In her final days in hospice, she made me promise not to live alone in grief. "Find joy again, Magnus," she whispered, holding my weathered hand in her fragile one. "Stay close to Jackson and the grandkids. Family is everything." I spent 3 months alone in our house after she passed. The silence was deafening. Every corner held memories of her laugh, her cooking, her gentle presence. I would find myself talking to her empty chair at breakfast. The grief counselor said this was normal, but it did not feel normal. It felt like half of me had been cut away. When Jackson called to suggest I move in with his family, it seemed like Eleanor was guiding us from beyond. His invitation was warm and enthusiastic. "Dad, we have plenty of space in the guest room and the kids would love having you around more. Amanda agrees it would be good for everyone." I met with a realtor the very next day. The housing market was booming, and our humble home sold quickly. I decided not to tell Jackson immediately, but I did not actually sell the house. Instead, I rented it to the Ramirez family, a young couple with twin toddlers, who reminded me of Eleanor and myself when we were starting out. They needed affordable housing, and I needed to know my home was filled with life and love. Most of the money from my pension and savings went toward helping Jackson with his mortgage on their large suburban home. He had mentioned financial pressure several times, and it felt good to ease his burden. I moved in with just 2 suitcases and my woodworking tools, leaving most of my possessions in storage. Lily, my 12-year-old granddaughter, helped me unpack and decorate the guest room. She hung photos of Eleanor and me on the walls and placed her own artwork on the dresser. Noah, my 9-year-old grandson, was equally excited, asking if we could go fishing every weekend, like we used to when he was younger. Amanda welcomed me with what seemed like genuine warmth, showing me around their spacious 2-story home and explaining their routines. She was an interior designer with her own small business, and their home reflected her professional touch. Everything was coordinated, modern, and meticulously maintained. "We are so happy to have you here, Magnus," she said that first day. "Just make yourself at home." But within weeks, small signs began to appear that perhaps not everyone was happy with the new arrangement. Amanda created a list of house rules that grew increasingly specific. I was asked not to use the kitchen between certain hours, to keep my television volume below level 10, and to check with her before inviting anyone over. The kids need structure and consistency, she explained when I questioned the growing restrictions. We all need to be on the same page. I tried my best to comply. After all, I was a guest in their home despite my financial contributions. I would wake early, make my bed with military precision, and spend most days trying to be useful without being in the way. I fixed leaky faucets, replaced worn weather stripping, and maintained the yard better than their previous gardener had, though Amanda often redid my landscaping work without comment. Jackson seemed caught in the middle. When we were alone, he was the loving son I had always known, eager to share a beer and watch baseball together. But when Amanda entered the room, he would grow quiet and defer to her opinions on household matters. I noticed the subtle shift in his posture, the way his eyes would seek her approval before responding to my suggestions or stories. One evening I overheard them talking in their bedroom, not realizing that the air vent carried sound to the guest room. "He is trying Amanda," Jackson said, his voice tired. "He just lost Mom and his whole life changed." "I know that," she replied, "but this was supposed to be temporary. It has been 4 months. The kids cannot even have friends over without him telling embarrassing stories. And he rearranged my pantry without asking. He is helping with the mortgage. Without that, we would be underwater right now. So this is about money. We should have just asked for a loan instead of having him actually move in. My mother warned me this would happen." I sat on my bed, stunned. Was I truly such a burden? I thought I had been contributing positively to their lives. The next morning, I made a conscious effort to be even less intrusive eating breakfast before anyone woke and spending more time in my room. Despite the tension with Amanda, my relationship with my grandchildren blossomed. Lily showed interest in woodworking, so I set up a small area in the garage where I could teach her safely. We started with simple projects like birdhouses and picture frames. "Grandpa, did you build a whole house once?" she asked carefully, sanding the edges of a jewelry box we were making for her mother. "I built the house your dad grew up in," I told her. "And I helped build dozens more for other families." Her eyes widened with admiration. "Could you teach me to build a treehouse?" Before I could answer, Amanda appeared at the garage door. "Lily, you have piano practice in 20 minutes. Go wash up now." Her tone was clipped, and she eyed the sawdust with visible disapproval. "Magnus, I would appreciate if you would check with me before starting projects with the children." After Lily reluctantly left, Amanda added, "And please clean this up thoroughly. I do not want sawdust tracked through my house." Noah and I had our special times too. Every Sunday morning we would go fishing at the small lake in the community park. He was becoming quite skilled and patient, qualities that made me proud. We would talk about school, his friends, and sometimes deeper subjects like Eleanor's passing. "Do you think Grandma can see us from heaven?" he asked one morning as mist rose from the lake. "I believe she can," I replied, helping him bait his hook. "And I think she is very proud of you." These moments were precious but increasingly rare as Amanda scheduled more weekend activities that conflicted with our fishing time. Piano lessons, soccer practice, coding camps, and playdates began to fill the calendar, leaving little room for what she called unstructured time. One Saturday, I overheard Amanda on the phone with her mother. "No, Mom, we cannot come for dinner tomorrow. Magnus will expect to be invited, and you know how Dad feels about him." A pause. "Yes, I know he is Jackson's father, but he is just so blue collar. Last time he talked about union strikes for 20 minutes. The words stung more than they should have. I had always been proud of my work and the labor movement that had secured fair wages for my colleagues and me. Was my background something to be ashamed of? Jackson grew increasingly distant, working late and bringing work home on weekends. When I tried to engage him about Amanda's behavior, he would deflect. She is just particular about the house, Dad. It is not personal. But it felt personal when she rearranged the photos in my room, removing most of those, with Eleanor explaining that they made the space feel cluttered. It felt personal when she interrupted my stories at dinner or changed the subject when I mentioned memories of Jackson's childhood. Still, I tried to adapt. I kept reminding myself of Eleanor's wish for me to stay close to family. I started keeping a journal of positive interactions, focusing on moments of connection rather than rejection. And I continued to help financially, paying for groceries and utilities, in addition to the mortgage contribution. Then came the announcement of the special family dinner. Jackson mentioned it casually over breakfast. Amanda's parents and her brother's family are coming over for dinner on Friday. Mom always enjoyed these big family gatherings. I took this as a positive sign, an opportunity to bond with Amanda's family and perhaps improve our relationship. I offered to help with preparations, and to my surprise, Amanda accepted. You can make your famous apple pie. Howard, my father, loves apple desserts. The day of the dinner, I spent hours in the kitchen preparing the pie from Eleanor's recipe. Amanda supervised, occasionally correcting my methods or commenting on the mess I was making. Still, it felt good to be contributing something meaningful to the gathering. The secret is using 3 different types of apples, I explained as I peeled and sliced. Eleanor discovered that it gives more complex flavor. Amanda nodded distractedly while checking her phone. Just make sure everything is cleaned up before they arrive. My mother notices everything. The guests began arriving at 6. Howard and Judith Blackwell were impeccably dressed and carried themselves with the confidence of people accustomed to wealth. Amanda's brother Thomas was a successful surgeon, and his wife Stephanie worked as a corporate attorney. Their 2 teenage children were polite but clearly bored by the prospect of a family dinner. I felt immediately out of place in my nicest button-down shirt and slacks, which paled in comparison to Howard's tailored suit and Thomas's designer casual wear. The conversation flowed around topics unfamiliar to me: country club memberships, European vacations, private school admissions, and stock portfolios. Magnus was just telling us about the apple pie he made, Jackson said during an awkward pause, trying to include me. Oh, Howard raised an eyebrow. Are you a baker? No, sir. I was in construction most of my life. The pie is my late wife's recipe. How quaint, Judith commented with a thin smile. I usually just have our chef prepare desserts. So much easier. The dinner itself was elaborate, with multiple courses served on Amanda's best china. I tried to participate in the conversation, offering comments when appropriate, but often found my contributions met with polite nods before the discussion moved swiftly on. As coffee was served, the conversation turned to family plans. So we are all confirmed for the Bahamas trip next month, Thomas asked, looking at Jackson and Amanda. The resort needed final numbers. I glanced at Jackson, confused. This was the first I had heard of any trip. Yes, we are in, Amanda replied. The kids are so excited about the dolphin experience. What about Magnus? Stephanie asked, seeming genuinely concerned. Will you be joining them? An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Jackson studied his coffee cup intently. Oh, Magnus will be fine here, Amanda answered smoothly. He is quite independent. The conversation then shifted to home renovation plans. We are finally going to convert the guest room into the home office I have been wanting, Amanda announced. Jackson needs a proper workspace now that he is up for partner. I felt a cold sensation spread through my chest. The guest room was my room. Where did they expect me to go? When are you planning to do this renovation? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Amanda's expression hardened, and she exchanged a look with Jackson, who suddenly found great interest in refilling water glasses. "Well, we were thinking of starting next month," she replied. "We have been putting it off for too long." "I see," I said slowly. "And where will I be staying during and after this renovation?" The tension around the table was palpable. Judith and Howard glanced at each other. Thomas suddenly became very interested in his dessert. "Dad," Jackson began awkwardly, "we were going to talk to you about this after dinner." But Amanda cut him off, her carefully maintained composure finally cracking. "Oh, for goodness sake," she snapped, rising from her chair. "This is ridiculous. Magnus, you were only supposed to stay temporarily. It has been 8 months. You have taken over our lives, our space, our finances. You monopolize the children's time with your outdated hobbies. You embarrass us in front of our friends with your construction stories and union talk." Her voice grew louder with each accusation. The children stared with wide, frightened eyes. "You are a burden to this family. Get out. We want our lives back." The dining room fell completely silent. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Noah looked down at his plate, shoulders hunched. Jackson sat frozen, saying nothing in my defense. I felt as if I had been physically struck. My hands trembled slightly, and a rushing sound filled my ears. In that moment, I saw with perfect clarity what I meant to them, what I had always meant to them. I slowly stood up, placing my napkin neatly beside my half-eaten pie. Every eye at the table was on me, waiting to see how the old man would react to this humiliation. As I stood there at the dining table, time seemed to slow down. I looked at each face around me, taking in their expressions. Jackson could not meet my eyes, his face a mask of shame, but his mouth stubbornly silent. Lily and Noah looked scared and confused, too young to fully understand the adult drama unfolding, but old enough to feel its wrongness. Howard and Judith appeared uncomfortable while Thomas and his wife exchanged awkward glances. And Amanda. Her face was flushed with emotion, but beneath the anger I caught something else. Satisfaction. As if she had been waiting for this moment, planning it. In that painful silence, memories flooded through me. Jackson at 7, sitting on my shoulders at a baseball game, cheering so loud, I thought I would go deaf. Jackson at 16, when I taught him to drive in our old pickup truck, both of us laughing as he ground the gears. Jackson at 22, graduating college, the first in our family to earn a degree, his eyes seeking mine in the crowd, full of gratitude. I had worked double and sometimes triple shifts to pay for that education. There were years when I barely saw daylight, except on Sundays, moving from one construction job to another. My hands grew calloused and my back permanently sore, but I never complained. It was what a father did for his child. When Jackson struggled to make rent during his first year after college, I sent money without question. When he needed help with the down payment on his first apartment, Eleanor and I dipped into our modest retirement savings. When his first marriage ended badly, he lived in our spare room for 6 months, and we supported him emotionally and financially until he got back on his feet. Eleanor and I had always been so proud of the man he had become. Successful, educated, with a beautiful family. We thought we had raised a son who understood the meaning of loyalty, gratitude, and respect. Now, as I stood humiliated at his dinner table, I realized how wrong we had been. The signs had been there all along, if only I had been willing to see them. 3 weeks ago, I had gotten up during the night and overheard Jackson and Amanda talking in the kitchen. "We need to do something about the old man situation," Amanda had said. "My parents are coming for dinner soon, and you know how my father feels about having multiple generations under one roof. It looks lower class." "What do you want me to do?" Jackson had responded, his voice tired but not disagreeing. He has nowhere else to go and he is paying half our mortgage. We will figure something out after he has transferred the next payment, Amanda had replied. Maybe look into those assisted living facilities. I had convinced myself I must have misunderstood. My son would never discuss me as a problem, to be solved an old man situation. But standing here now, seeing his silent complicity with Amanda's outburst, I could no longer deny the truth. I had been tolerated, not welcomed. My financial contributions were the only reason I had been allowed to stay this long. The grandchildren were being gradually pulled away from me. I was an embarrassment to be managed, not a father to be respected. The realization was like ice water in my veins, shocking, but ultimately clarifying. Eleanor always said that the most painful truths are often the most necessary ones. See things as they are, Magnus, she would say, not as you wish them to be. As this clarity washed over me, I felt something unexpected. Not rage, though that would have been justified. Not even sorrow, though that would come later. What I felt was a quiet, powerful dignity rising within me. Eleanor's voice seemed to whisper in my ear, "Remember who you are, Magnus. You built homes with your hands. You raised a family with your heart. Your worth is not determined by those who fail to see it." I straightened my shoulders, feeling every one of my 74 years, but not bowed by them. "I see," I said finally, my voice steady despite the emotion tightening my throat. "I understand now where I stand in this family." Actually, I continued looking directly at Amanda. "I think there are some things everyone at this table should understand." My voice was calmer than I felt, carrying the steady authority I had once used to manage construction sites with dozens of workers. First, I should clarify something about my financial situation. I reached for my wallet and removed a neatly folded document. I never actually sold my house. Amanda's expression shifted from righteous anger to confusion. Jackson's head snapped up, his eyes finally meeting mine. "What do you mean, Dad?" he asked. "I mean that I still own my home. I have been renting it to a young family at below market rate because they reminded me of your mother and me when we were starting out. They needed a break, and I was in a position to give them one." I unfolded the document, a copy of the rental agreement. "I have been paying most of your mortgage from my savings for the past 8 months. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to help." The silence around the table took on a different quality now. Howard and Judith exchanged looks, their assessment of the situation visibly shifting. "But you said," Jackson began. "I said I had arranged things with the house. You assumed that meant selling it." I looked at my son steadily. "I kept the house because Eleanor and I built our lives there. I thought living here was the right thing for everyone, that I could be close to my family while helping you financially. Clearly, I was mistaken." I placed another document on the table, this one showing the transfers to Jackson's mortgage account. 8 months of payments, each one representing a significant portion of my retirement savings. "You have been paying our mortgage?" Amanda asked, her voice higher than usual. "All this time, 65% of it," I confirmed, "plus utilities and most of the groceries for the past 3 months. Howard cleared his throat, looking at his daughter with new disapproval. "Amanda, you told us Magnus was financially dependent on you and Jackson." Amanda's face flushed deeper. We... Jackson handles the finances." I looked at my son, giving him a chance to speak. His face had drained of color. "Dad, I can explain," he began, but I held up my hand. "There is no need. I understand completely." I folded the documents and returned them to my wallet. I will be leaving tonight. I have already called a taxi. It should be here in about 30 minutes, which gives me enough time to pack my things. Magnus, this is ridiculous, Amanda sputtered, suddenly realizing the financial implications of my departure. We can discuss this like adults. There is no need for hasty decisions. I agree, I replied. There is nothing hasty about this decision. It has been made clear to me over many months where I stand in this household. Tonight merely confirmed what I should have accepted long ago. I turned to leave the dining room, then paused and looked back at my grandchildren. Lily was openly crying now, while Noah looked angry and confused. Lilika, I want you both to know that I love you very much. Nothing will ever change that. I will always be your grandfather, and you will always be welcome in my home. Then I walked upstairs to my room and began methodically packing my belongings. I could hear raised voices from the dining room. Jackson and Amanda were arguing, their voices occasionally rising enough for me to catch fragments. How could you let this happen? Me, you are the one who just exploded. He cannot just leave. What about the mortgage? I tuned them out and focused on my task. My life here fit into the same 2 suitcases I had arrived with 8 months ago. Clothes, a few books, photos of Eleanor, and some personal mementos. My tools were still in the garage, but they could wait for another day. As I was closing the second suitcase, there was a soft knock at the door. It was Lily, her eyes red from crying. "Grandpa, please do not go," she said, her voice breaking. "I will be better, I promise. Is it because of the mess we made in the garage yesterday? I will clean it up." My heart nearly broke at her words. She thought this was somehow her fault. "No, sweetheart," I said, kneeling down despite my creaky knees to look her in the eyes. "This is not about you or Noah. You have both been the brightest parts of my time here. This is an adult situation that has nothing to do with anything you did or did not do." "But where will you go?" she asked. "Will we still see you?" "I am going back to my house, the one where your dad grew up," I explained. "And yes, you will definitely still see me. I will make sure of it." I reached into my bag and pulled out a small wooden box, the one she had helped me make in the garage. "I want you to have this. I was saving it for your birthday, but now seems like the right time." She took the box, running her fingers over the smooth maple surface and the intricate flower pattern we had carved together. "It is beautiful, Grandpa." "Open it," I encouraged her. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet that had belonged to Eleanor. "Your grandmother wanted you to have this when you were old enough. I think that time is now." Lily carefully put on the bracelet, tears falling again. "I will never take it off." Noah appeared in the doorway, his expression a mixture of anger and grief. "Mom says you are leaving because you do not want to live with us anymore." "That is not true," I said firmly. "I am leaving because adults sometimes have disagreements about how a household should work. It does not mean I do not want to be with you, Tong." I reached into my bag again and pulled out a fishing lure I had made myself. "This is for you. It is my lucky lure. Every fish I ever caught with your grandmother came on this lure." Noah took it carefully, examining the craftsmanship. "Will you still take me fishing?" "Every Sunday if you want," I promised. "I will talk to your parents about it." Jackson appeared behind the children, his face haggard. "Kids, give Grandpa some space to pack." After they reluctantly left, Jackson closed the door and sat heavily on the edge of the bed. "Dad, I am so sorry about what happened down there. Amanda has been under a lot of stress with her business, and her parents always make things worse." I continued packing methodically. "I am not interested in excuses, Jackson. I heard what you and Amanda have been saying about me when you thought I could not hear. The old man situation. The burden. Tonight was just the public version of what you have both been feeling for months. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture he had had since childhood, when caught in a lie. It is not like that. You are twisting things. Am I? I zipped the final suitcase. When Amanda called me an embarrassment tonight, you said nothing. When she told me to get out, you sat in silence. Your actions and your inactions have spoken clearly. What about the money? He asked, his voice small. We cannot afford this house without your help. The question told me everything I needed to know about his priorities. Not concern for my well-being or regret for his behavior, but worry about finances. That is not my problem anymore, I replied. You are an adult with a good job. Figure it out like your mother and I did when times were tough. The taxi arrived exactly on time. I carried my suitcases downstairs myself, despite Jackson's belated offer to help. In the foyer, Amanda stood with her arms crossed, her parents flanking her like sentries. This is completely unnecessary, Magnus, she said, her tone now conciliatory, but her eyes calculating. We can work this out as a family. We are not a family, I replied simply. A family protects its members. A family shows respect and gratitude. What you and Jackson have shown me is that I am nothing more than a financial convenience to you. I turned to Howard and Judith. It was nice to finally meet you both. I apologized that it had to be under these circumstances. Howard nodded stiffly, but Judith surprised me by speaking up. For what it is worth, Magnus, I think Amanda and Jackson have handled this terribly. If you were my father, I would be ashamed of treating you this way. Amanda's mouth fell open at her mother's words. Before she could respond, I opened the front door. The taxi driver was already taking my suitcases. Goodbye, I said, not looking back. I will be in touch about arrangements to see the children. As the taxi pulled away, I did not allow myself to look back at the house. Instead, I looked forward toward the uncertain future and the home that was waiting for me. The home that, despite everything, had remained mine all along. The taxi driver, an older man probably close to my age, glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Rough night, he asked sympathetically. You could say that, I replied, watching the upscale neighborhood recede behind us. I am going home. Home is good. He nodded. No place better. We drove in companionable silence through the night, the city lights blurring, as we moved from the affluent suburbs toward my more modest neighborhood. I had lived there for over 40 years, raised my son there, made memories with Eleanor in every corner of that small but solid house. The thought of returning brought both comfort and apprehension. When we arrived, I paid the driver with a generous tip, and he helped me carry my suitcases to the front door. The porch light was on a welcome beacon in the darkness. Good luck to you, sir, the driver said before departing. I stood for a moment, key in hand, gathering myself before entering. The house looked exactly as I remembered the flower beds Eleanor had loved, now tended by someone else, but still blooming with her favorite perennials. As I unlocked the door, it opened before I could turn the key fully. Maria Ramirez stood there, her kind face concerned. Mr. Magnus Carlos called and said you were coming home tonight. Is everything okay? Carlos Ramirez was my tenant's brother who worked as a dispatcher for the taxi company. Small towns have their advantages. Everything is fine, Maria, I assured her, though we both knew it was not true. I decided it was time to come home. Maria and her husband Diego had been renting my house for the past 8 months. They had twins, a boy and a girl just turning 5. The arrangement had been that they would move to the converted basement apartment when I returned, but clearly they had not expected me tonight. Come in, she insisted, taking one of my suitcases. Diego is just putting the twins to bed. We will move our things downstairs right away. There is no need to do that tonight, I said, following her into the house. I can take the couch for now. We will figure out the details tomorrow. The interior of my home was both familiar and different. The Ramirez family had respected the basic structure, but added their own touches. Colorful throws draped the furniture, children's artwork decorated the refrigerator, and the smell of home cooking lingered in the air. Diego appeared from the hallway, concern etched on his face. Mr. Magnus, we were not expecting you. Is everything all right? Do you need anything? Just a place to sleep tonight? I replied suddenly, feeling every bit of my age and the emotional exhaustion of the evening. Of course, this is your home, Diego said firmly. But please take your bedroom. We insist. The children are already asleep in their room, but Maria and I can take the couch. I started to protest, but Maria was already changing the sheets on what had been my and Eleanor's bed. The mattress was new, I noticed, not the one we had shared for decades. Somehow, that small change was a relief. I did not think I could have slept on our old mattress, not tonight, not alone. Thank you, I said simply. We will sort everything else out tomorrow. After they had insisted on making me a cup of chamomile tea and making sure I had everything I needed, the Ramirez couple left me alone in the bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed, finally allowing the events of the evening to fully register. The humiliation of Amanda's outburst, the betrayal of Jackson's silence, the realization that I had been deluding myself about my place in their lives. The pain was acute, a physical sensation, like a vice around my chest. On the nightstand sat a framed photo of Eleanor that the Ramirezes had kept in place. It was my favorite picture of her taken on our 40th anniversary trip to the Grand Canyon. Her silver hair was blowing in the wind, her smile radiant against the backdrop of the magnificent landscape. "Oh, Ellie," I whispered to her image. "I made such a mess of things. I thought I was doing what you wanted, staying close to family. But I do not think this is what you meant." I could almost hear her practical response. Magnus Hansen, feeling sorry for yourself, never fixed anything. Get some sleep and make a plan in the morning. Despite everything, I smiled at the thought. Even in death, she was still guiding me, still my compass. I slept deeply that night, the emotional exhaustion overriding the unfamiliarity of the new mattress and the strange sensation of being back in my old home under such circumstances. When I woke, sunlight was streaming through the curtains, and the smell of coffee and cooking wafted under the door. In the kitchen, I found Maria making breakfast while the twins sat at the table coloring. They looked up with curious eyes when I entered. "Good morning," I said, suddenly self-conscious. "Buenos dias, Mr. Magnus," the little girl said shyly. "I am Sophia." "And I am Miguel," her brother added. "Are you going to live with us now?" "Miguel manners," Maria chided gently. "Mr. Magnus, please sit. Coffee is ready and breakfast will be just a moment." "You do not need to feed me," I protested. "Nonsense," she replied firmly. "Diego has already gone to work, but he said to tell you he will help move things this evening." As I sat with this young family at what had been my table for so many years, I felt an unexpected sense of rightness. These were good people working hard and raising their children with love. They had cared for my home as if it were their own. Over breakfast, we discussed practical arrangements. The basement apartment was fully finished with its own bathroom and small kitchen area, perfect for a single person. "But this is your home," Maria insisted. "We should be the ones to move downstairs." The apartment makes more sense for me now, I explained. It is smaller, easier to maintain, and the children need the yard and the space. I looked at the twins who were listening while pretending not to. Besides, I think I would enjoy having a family in the house again. By mid-morning, word had spread through the neighborhood about my return. Mrs. Patterson from next door appeared with a casserole, her concerned eyes taking in my appearance. "Magnus Hansen, you look like you have been through the wars," she said bluntly. She had been Eleanor's best friend for 30 years and never minced words. "What happened with Jackson? Last I heard you were living like royalty in that big house of his." I gave her an abbreviated version of events as we sat on the porch with coffee. Her expression darkened with each detail. "That boy," she muttered. "Eleanor would be heartbroken, and after everything you two did for him." "I do not want to turn people against Jackson," I said. "He made his choice. I have made mine." "Well, you are back where you belong," she declared. "And you are not alone. Remember that." Throughout the day, other neighbors stopped by. Bill Thomas from across the street, a retired plumber who had often joined Eleanor and me for backyard barbecues. The Hendersons from the corner house whose children Jackson had played with growing up. Even Pastor Michaels from our church made an appearance, bringing communion and a listening ear. By evening, my refrigerator was stocked with homemade food. My phone contained a dozen new numbers I was instructed to call if you need anything at all, day or night. And I had invitations for dinner for the next week. The community I had thought lost with Eleanor's passing was still there, still strong, still caring. I had been so focused on blood family that I had forgotten the family we build through friendship and shared history. Diego returned from work and insisted on helping me move my things to the basement apartment immediately. With his help and Maria's organizational skills by nightfall, I was settled in my new space. It was cozy rather than cramped, with a comfortable bedroom, a small living area, and enough kitchen space for a single person's needs. "We put in new carpet and painted down here last month," Diego explained. "We were planning to offer the space to my parents when they visit from Mexico, but this is much better." That night, I slept in my new bed in the basement of my own home, listening to the comfortable sounds of family life above me. The twins' footsteps pattering across the floor, the muffled sounds of Maria and Diego talking, the occasional laugh or cry. It was not my family, not in the traditional sense, but it was a family that respected me and welcomed my presence. For the first time since Eleanor's death, I did not feel alone. The next morning, I began rebuilding my life with purpose. I called my old friend Frank, who still worked part-time supervising construction sites despite being 70. "Magnus, you old dog," he exclaimed when he heard my voice. "About time you came up for air. Some of the guys were saying you had moved to Florida or something." "Not Florida," I chuckled. "Just a detour that did not work out. Listen, are you still helping with that community center renovation?" "Sure am," he confirmed. "Why you looking to get your hands dirty again?" "Maybe," I admitted. "I need something useful to do." "Well, we are always short on skilled volunteers. Come by tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. Bring your tools." Next, I called my attorney, Michael Greenbaum, who had handled Eleanor's will and our other legal matters for decades. I explained the situation with Jackson and my current living arrangement. "I want to make sure my assets are protected," I told him. "And I want to set up college funds for my grandchildren that cannot be touched by their parents." "Smart thinking," Michael said. "Let me look at the options and get back to you. And Magnus, I am sorry about Jackson. That is a tough blow. Life gives us what we need to learn from, not what we want," I replied, quoting one of Eleanor's favorite sayings. My final call was to a therapist whose card the hospice social worker had given me after Eleanor's death. I had ignored it, then thinking I could handle grief on my own. Now I recognized that professional support might help me navigate this new loss, this different kind of grief. In the afternoon, I ventured into my old workshop in the detached garage. The Ramirez family had used it mainly for storage, respecting my tools and workbench. I ran my hands over the worn wooden surface of the bench Eleanor had given me for our 5th anniversary. So many projects had taken shape here. Furniture for our home, toys for Jackson, a hope chest for Eleanor that she had filled with keepsakes for our grandchildren. I decided to start a new project, something to occupy my hands and mind. A set of building blocks for the Ramirez twins seemed like the perfect beginning. Simple but requiring precision, useful and likely to bring joy. As I selected wood and began measuring, I felt a sense of familiar comfort settle over me. This was who I was, a builder, a maker, someone who created rather than tore down. The next few weeks established new patterns and routines. 3 days a week, I volunteered at the community center renovation, working alongside men and women I had known for years in the construction industry. Many were retired like me, finding purpose in using their skills to improve the neighborhood. I spent time in my workshop, completing the blocks for the twins and starting new projects. A local elementary school heard about my woodworking and asked if I would teach a basic woodcraft class for their after-school program. Working with children again brought unexpected joy. Diego and Maria insisted I join them for dinner at least twice a week, and the twins began to see me as a sort of honorary grandfather. I taught Miguel to play checkers, and Sophia would bring me pictures she had drawn for my refrigerator. My neighbors included me in their lives as well. Sunday dinners at the Pattersons. Tuesday night poker at Bill Thomas's house. Church activities and community events where I was welcomed and valued. The basement apartment became truly mine, decorated with photos of Eleanor and mementos of our life together. It was smaller than the house above, but it fit my needs perfectly. I had privacy when I wanted it, and company when I needed it. What I did not have was contact with Jackson or my grandchildren. I had called Lily and Noah's phones several times, but the calls went straight to voicemail. I suspected Amanda had confiscated their phones or blocked my number. I sent letters and small gifts, hoping they would get through, but received no response. Then about 3 weeks after I had left, there was a knock at my separate entrance door early on a Saturday morning. When I opened it, Jackson stood there looking uncomfortable and sleep-deprived. "Dad," he said simply, "can we talk?" I stepped back, allowing Jackson to enter my apartment. He looked around with surprise, taking in the comfortable space I had created. "This is nice," he said awkwardly. "I did not realize you had finished the basement so completely." "Diego and Maria did most of the work," I replied, gesturing for him to sit at my small dining table. "Coffee, please." He nodded, still standing uneasily, until I explicitly pointed to a chair. I busied myself with the coffee maker, giving us both a moment to collect our thoughts. This was the first time we had spoken since that disastrous dinner. I had many things I wanted to say, but I reminded myself to listen first. Eleanor always said you learn more from listening than talking. When I placed a mug in front of him and took the seat across the table, Jackson looked older than his 45 years. The past weeks had clearly taken a toll. "How are you, Dad?" he asked, his voice subdued. "I am doing well," I answered truthfully. "It has been an adjustment, but I have good people around me." He nodded, wrapping his hands around the mug as if seeking warmth. "That is good. I have been worried." I waited, letting the silence stretch between us. If he had come here, he had something to say, and I was not going to make it easier for him. Finally, he sighed deeply. I owe you an apology. Several, actually. What happened at dinner that night was inexcusable. I should have stopped Amanda. I should have defended you. I should never have let things get to that point in the first place. Why didn't you? I asked simply. He rubbed his face with his hands, a gesture of fatigue and stress. It is complicated. Try me. I have time. Amanda and I have been having problems for years, he admitted. Financial stress mainly, but other things too. We are both working constantly, hardly see each other, and when we do, we fight about money. The house is underwater, even with your help. Her business is struggling. My partnership track is not progressing as fast as I had hoped. He took a sip of coffee before continuing. When you moved in, it was supposed to help. Financially, it did. But Amanda, she resented your presence from the start. She said it made us look like we could not stand on our own, especially to her parents. She was raised with certain expectations about success and appearances. And you went along with her, I observed. I tried to balance things, he said defensively. Keep both of you happy. It was impossible. No, Jackson. You chose. You chose her resentment over my dignity. You chose appearances over respect. You chose silence when you should have spoken. His face flushed. What was I supposed to do? She is my wife. And I am your father, I replied evenly. The man who worked 60-hour weeks so you could go to college, who never missed a school event or a baseball game despite working 2 jobs, who along with your mother gave you everything we possibly could to set you up for success. Jackson looked down at his hands. I know that, Dad. I have always known that. Then why? I asked the question that had haunted me for weeks. Why did you let her treat me that way? Why did you say nothing when she humiliated me in front of everyone? Because I was afraid, he burst out. Afraid of losing her, losing the kids, losing the life we have built. You have no idea how fragile it all is. One wrong move and everything falls apart. I considered his words, recognizing the fear beneath them. So instead, you were willing to sacrifice me. He did not deny it, which was something at least. I made a terrible choice, Dad. I know that now. Everything has been falling apart anyway. Amanda's parents cut off their financial support after what happened. They were apparently supplementing her business and helping with the kids' private school tuition. Now they say they cannot support how she behaved toward you. I see, I said, noting that he was still focused on the financial ramifications rather than the moral ones. And how are Lily and Noah? I have tried to contact them. They miss you, he admitted. Amanda took their phones after they tried to call you several times. She said they needed to focus on family healing without outside influences. My anger flared at this. I am not an outside influence. I am their grandfather. I know, Dad. That is part of why I am here. The kids need you in their lives. And honestly, I need you too. I studied my son's face, looking for sincerity. There was genuine pain there, but also something calculating. He needed something specific. What exactly do you want from me, Jackson? Be honest. He sighed again. We are in trouble, Dad. Serious financial trouble. Without Amanda's parents' help, and with your contributions gone, we cannot make the mortgage payments. The bank is threatening foreclosure. I came to ask, to see if you would consider helping us one more time. And there it was. Not a visit motivated primarily by remorse or concern for my well-being, but by financial desperation. No, I said firmly. Dad, please just listen. No, Jackson. I have spent my entire life helping you. I have supported you financially, emotionally, in every way a father can support a son. And when I needed you to simply show me basic respect and dignity, you failed completely. It was one bad night, he protested. It was not just one night. It was months of allowing Amanda to treat me like an unwelcome guest despite my financial contributions. It was weeks of hearing you refer to me as the old man situation. It was a pattern of behavior that revealed exactly what you think of me. Jackson looked genuinely surprised. You heard that, the old man comment? I heard many things. I saw many things. I simply chose not to believe them until I could no longer deny the evidence. He was silent for a long moment. So that is it, after everything you are just cutting us off. I am not cutting you off, Jackson. I am establishing boundaries. I will not give you money to enable the lifestyle Amanda demands. I will not be treated as a burden or an embarrassment. I will not pretend that what happened was a minor incident we can simply move past. What about the kids? He asked. I want to see my grandchildren, I said firmly. That is non-negotiable. I will meet them anywhere, anytime that works. But I will not be kept from them because of adult conflicts. Amanda will never agree to that. Then you will have to stand up to her, won't you, for once? The words hung between us, challenging and uncomfortable. Jackson finished his coffee in silence, seemingly lost in thought. I do love you, Dad, he said finally. I know I have a poor way of showing it, but I do. I love you too, son. That has never been in question. But love without respect is incomplete. You need to figure out what kind of man you want to be, what example you want to set for your children. As Jackson prepared to leave, I handed him a small paper bag. These are for Lily and Noah. Letters mainly and small gifts I made in my workshop. Please make sure they get them. He nodded, taking the bag. I will. And Dad, I really am sorry. I know, I replied. But sorry is just the beginning. It is what you do next that matters. After he left, I sat alone in my apartment, processing the conversation. It had gone better than I feared, but worse than I had hoped. Jackson was remorseful, but still focused on his immediate problems rather than the deeper issues. He wanted financial rescue, not reconciliation. Still, it was a start. A small crack in the wall that had formed between us. Whether that crack would widen into an opening or be patched over would depend on his choices going forward. The next day, I received a text message from an unknown number. It read simply, Grandpa, it's Lily. Using Mom's old phone she doesn't know about. Noah and I miss you so much. Can we see you soon? My heart lightened at this small but significant contact. I miss you both too, I replied. I am working on it. Stay strong. I love you. Love you too, came the response. Got to go before Mom checks. That brief exchange gave me renewed determination. My grandchildren needed me in their lives, and I needed them. Whatever it took, I would find a way to maintain that connection. The following week brought an unexpected development. My attorney called with news about Jackson and Amanda. They have listed their house for sale, Michael informed me. They are downsizing to an apartment. Thought you should know. The news was both surprising and not. Their financial situation had clearly become untenable, and selling the house was a practical solution. It was a humbling move for them, especially for Amanda, with her concern for appearances, but perhaps a necessary one. 3 days later, I received a text from Jackson. Can we meet, all of us? The kids really want to see you. We arranged to meet at a park halfway between our homes. When I arrived, Lily and Noah ran to me immediately, throwing their arms around me in fierce hugs that nearly knocked me over. "Grandpa, we missed you so much," Lily exclaimed, her arms tight around my waist. "Did you get our messages? Mom took our phones, but I found her old one." Noah added, his words tumbling out quickly. "I got one message from Lily," I said, hugging them back just as fiercely. "It meant the world to me." Jackson stood back, watching our reunion with a complicated expression. Amanda was there too, standing even further back, her body language closed and defensive. We spent an hour at the park, the children excitedly filling me in on everything I had missed. They had received my letters and gifts, they assured me, though Amanda had held them for review before giving them over. When the children went to play on the nearby playground, Jackson approached me on the bench where I sat. "We sold the house," he said without preamble. "We are moving to a 3-bedroom apartment next month." "Michael told me," I admitted. "It seems like a sensible decision." "It was our only option," he replied. "We are simplifying everything. Amanda is closing her design business and looking for a stable job with benefits. We are moving the kids to public school next semester." These were significant changes for a family that had been so concerned with status and appearances. I nodded, acknowledging the difficulty, but not offering sympathy. These were consequences of their own choices. "The kids need you, Dad," Jackson continued. "They have been miserable. Even Amanda can see that keeping them from you is hurting them." I looked over to where Amanda stood, watching her children play. "And what does Amanda think about me seeing them regularly?" "She is coming to terms with things," he said carefully. "Her parents made it clear they side with you in this situation. That was a wake-up call for her. And losing the house, downsizing everything. It has been humbling." I considered this information. "I would like to establish regular visits with the children. Perhaps they could spend one weekend a month with me and we could have dinner together weekly." "I think we can work that out." Jackson nodded. "And Dad, I have been seeing a therapist, trying to understand why I let things get so bad, why I could not stand up to Amanda or stand up for you. I have a lot to work through, and this more than anything else," he had said, gave me hope. "That is good, son. Very good." Amanda approached cautiously, standing at a careful distance. "Magnus," she acknowledged stiffly. "Amanda," I returned evenly. "I want to," she began, then stopped, clearly struggling. "The children need their grandfather." It was not an apology, not even close, but it was a concession, a recognition of reality, if not of wrongdoing. "Yes, they do," I agreed, "and I need them. We will work something out," she said, then walked away to join the children. It was a small beginning, fragile and uncertain, but it was something. Over the following months, a new pattern emerged. The children visited me every other weekend, staying in the guest room at my house that the Ramirez family insisted on keeping available for them. We went fishing, worked on woodcraft projects, baked using Eleanor's recipes, and simply enjoyed being together. Jackson and I met for lunch once a week, gradually rebuilding our relationship on new, more honest terms. He continued therapy, confronting difficult truths about himself and his marriage. It was painful work, but necessary. Amanda remained distant but civil, no longer actively interfering with my relationship with the children. During family therapy sessions that we eventually all attended, she reluctantly acknowledged that her treatment of me had been wrong, though she struggled to take full responsibility. "I was protecting my family and our lifestyle," she insisted during one session. "No," the therapist corrected gently. "You were protecting your image and your preferences. There is a difference." These sessions were difficult but productive, bringing to light the complex dynamics that had led to our family breakdown. Jackson's inability to set boundaries with Amanda, Amanda's materialistic values and need for status, my own reluctance to see the truth about my son's character flaws. We all had work to do. Meanwhile, my life at my own home flourished. The Ramirez family and I settled into a comfortable arrangement with me in the basement apartment, but often joining them upstairs for meals and family time. The twins adopted me as an honorary grandfather, and I found joy in this unexpected extension of family. My volunteer work expanded from the community center to a program teaching construction skills to at-risk youth. My workshop became a place where neighborhood children gathered to learn woodworking basics under careful supervision. I joined a grief support group for seniors who had lost spouses, finding comfort in shared experiences and offering comfort in return. Life developed a new rhythm, different from what I had envisioned after Eleanor's passing, but fulfilling in its own way. I was not merely existing in the shadow of loss, but building something new while honoring what had been. When Thanksgiving approached, nearly a year after the disastrous dinner that had changed everything, Jackson tentatively asked if I would consider hosting the holiday at my house. We thought it might be good to create a new tradition, he explained, a fresh start. I agreed with some conditions. This will be a potluck. Everyone contributes something, and I would like to invite the Ramirez family to join us. They are part of my life now. Jackson agreed readily, and even Amanda raised no objections when he relayed the plan. On Thanksgiving Day, my small home filled with people. Jackson, Amanda, and the children arrived first, bringing side dishes and desserts. The Ramirez family joined us, the twins excited to share the holiday with Lily and Noah, whom they had come to know during their visits. As we gathered around the expanded dining table that Diego and I had built specially for the occasion, I looked at the faces surrounding me. My son still working to become the man I had always believed him to be. My grandchildren growing and thriving, despite the family turmoil. Amanda humbled by circumstances, but slowly developing a more authentic sense of self. The Ramirez family, who had become such an unexpected blessing in my life. I thought of Eleanor, who would have loved to see this gathering, this healing in progress. I imagined her smile, her whispered, "Well done, Magnus." The family before me was not perfect. We were all works in progress, learning and growing through our mistakes and triumphs. But we were trying, and that counted for something. We were finding our way back to what family should be, a place of respect, honesty, and love, even when those things require difficult conversations and painful growth. As I stood to carve the turkey, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey, difficult as it had been. Sometimes it takes losing what you thought you wanted to find what you truly need. 1 year after that fateful dinner where Amanda had demanded I leave, I stood in my kitchen preparing for another family gathering. But everything was different now. My home buzzed with the energy of preparation. The Ramirez twins were setting the table with careful precision, while Lily helped me prepare Eleanor's famous apple pie. Noah was in the backyard with Diego setting up additional seating for our expanded family gathering. Grandpa tell me again how Grandma knew exactly when the pie was perfect. Lily requested carefully crimping the edges of the crust, as I had shown her. She said you had to listen to the apples. I explained, smiling at the memory. When they started to bubble with just the right sound, a sort of gentle singing, that is when you knew. "I think I can hear it," Lily exclaimed, leaning closer to the oven window. The past year had been a journey of healing and rebuilding, not just for me, but for our entire family. Jackson and Amanda had settled into their more modest apartment, adjusting to a simpler lifestyle that surprisingly seemed to suit them better than their previous striving for status and material success. Jackson had finally earned his partnership at the law firm, though the achievement seemed less central to his identity now. He spent more time with his children and made regular efforts to rebuild our relationship through weekly lunches and honest conversations. Amanda had found work as an interior design teacher at the community college, a position that offered stability and allowed her to share her genuine talent without the pressure of running her own business. The humbling experience of downsizing and losing her parents' financial support had triggered some genuine soul-searching. During one particularly breakthrough family therapy session, 6 months earlier, she had finally offered a real apology. "Magnus," she had said, looking me directly in the eyes, "for perhaps the first time, I treated you terribly. Not just at that dinner, but for months before. I was so focused on appearances and what my parents would think that I lost sight of basic human decency. I am truly sorry for the pain I caused you." The words had not immediately healed everything, but they had opened a door to genuine progress. We would never be close, Amanda and I, but we had developed a respectful coexistence centered around our shared love for Jackson and the children. The Ramirez family had become an integral part of my life. Diego and Maria insisted I join them for dinner several times a week, and the twins had adopted me as their abuelo Magnus, bringing their school projects to show me and seeking me out for stories and advice. They had offered to move to the basement apartment multiple times, but I consistently refused. My cozy space had become home, and I enjoyed the perfect balance of privacy and company that our arrangement provided. My workshop had become a neighborhood gathering place. What started as simple woodworking lessons for a few local children had grown into a structured program where I taught basic carpentry skills every Saturday morning. The satisfaction of passing on knowledge accumulated over decades of construction work gave my retirement a sense of purpose I had not anticipated. The community center renovation had been completed, and I now volunteered there 3 days a week, teaching home repair classes to adults and helping seniors with maintenance projects they could no longer manage themselves. My calendar was fuller now than it had been before Eleanor's passing, filled with meaningful activities and genuine connections. As I arranged Eleanor's favorite serving dishes for our dinner, the doorbell rang. It was Jackson arriving early, as promised to help with final preparations. "The house looks great, Dad," he said, embracing me warmly. "Need any help in the kitchen?" "Everything is under control," I assured him. "But you could check if Diego needs anything in the backyard." As he headed outside, I reflected on the change in my son over the past year. The financial crisis and family upheaval had stripped away layers of pretense, revealing both weaknesses and strengths I had not fully recognized. He was learning slowly but steadily to stand firm in his values rather than bending to accommodate others' expectations or demands. Amanda arrived 30 minutes later with a homemade cranberry sauce and a vegetable dish. Her greeting was warm if not effusive, and she immediately offered to help Maria with the children. By mid-afternoon, our extended family had gathered around tables set up in the backyard under strings of lights that Diego had installed for the occasion. The November weather was mild, perfect for an outdoor meal. As I looked around at the assembled faces, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. My family had expanded and evolved in ways I could never have predicted. There was Jackson and his family, still works in progress, but genuinely trying to build something authentic. There was the Ramirez family, who had brought new life and energy to my home and heart. There were neighbors and friends from the community center, widening our circle further. Before we began eating, I stood to say a few words, something Eleanor had always insisted upon at family gatherings. "A year ago," I began, I thought I had lost my family. I felt abandoned and betrayed, cast aside when I was no longer useful. Jackson lowered his eyes, and Amanda shifted uncomfortably in her seat. But life has a way of surprising us, I continued. What I lost was not family, but an illusion of what family should be. What I gained was something more real, more honest, and ultimately more satisfying. I gestured to the diverse group gathered around our tables. Family is not just about blood relations. It is about respect, honesty, and showing up for each other, even when it is difficult. It is about seeing people as they truly are, not as we wish them to be or what they can do for us. I raised my glass in a toast. To Eleanor, who always said that every ending contains the seeds of a new beginning. And to all of you, my family in the truest sense of the word. As conversations and laughter flowed around the tables, Lily approached me with a small wooden box, similar to the one I had given her a year ago, but clearly made by her own hands. "I made this for you, Grandpa," she said shyly, "in woodshop at school." I opened it carefully to find a collection of small mementos, a fishing lure Noah and I had used on a particularly successful outing, a photo of Eleanor that Lily had specially framed a small carving she had made under my tutelage. "It is a memory box," she explained, "for all the good things we do not want to forget." I hugged her tightly, too moved for words momentarily. "This is the most precious gift, Lily. Thank you." Later, as the evening wound down and guests began to depart, Jackson pulled me aside for a private word. "Dad, I want you to know something," he said, his expression serious. "This past year has been the hardest and most important of my life. Losing the house, facing my failures as a son, and as a man rebuilding from scratch. It broke me down completely, but it also gave me a chance to rebuild better. You have come a long way," I acknowledged. "I am proud of the work you have done." "I have a long way still to go," he admitted. "But I want to thank you for something. You could have rescued us financially. You could have made everything easier. But by refusing to do that, by holding me accountable, you forced me to face myself honestly for the first time in my adult life." He looked across the yard to where Amanda was helping the twins collect plates, laughing at something Sophia had said. "Even my marriage is stronger now," he continued. "Not easier, but more real. We actually talk about things instead of just presenting a perfect image to the world." "That is what your mother and I always tried to show you," I said. "Marriage is not about ease, but about growing together through the hard times." "I understand that now," he nodded. "And I am trying to teach it to my children, too." As the final guests departed and the Ramirez family began cleaning up, despite my protests that it could wait until morning, I sat on the porch swing Eleanor and I had installed decades ago. The night was clear, stars visible despite the suburban lighting. "We did all right in the end, did not we, Ellie?" I murmured to the night sky. "It was not the path we expected, but we got there." I thought about the journey of the past year, from the humiliation of that dinner to the peace and purpose I had found. The path had been painful, but necessary. Sometimes dignity requires walking away from situations that diminish your spirit, even when those situations involve people you love. But dignity also allows for reconciliation when it is based on genuine change and respect. The family gathered here today was not perfect by any means. We still had our struggles and disagreements, but we were learning to face them honestly, to prioritize respect and integrity over appearances and convenience. As I prepared to go inside, Lily came out to join me on the swing. "Grandpa," she said thoughtfully, "remember when you left our house that night? I was so scared I would never see you again." "I remember," I said gently. I was scared too. But things are better now, are not they? She asked. Even though everything changed. Yes, they are. I agreed. Sometimes the things we fear most, like big changes, are exactly what we need to grow. She leaned her head against my shoulder, content with this simple wisdom. We sat together in comfortable silence, the porch swing creaking gently, just as it had when her father was a boy. Life would continue to bring challenges and changes. There would be more difficult conversations, more growth needed, more lessons to learn. But I faced the future with a sense of peace that had eluded me since Eleanor's passing. I had found my place in the world, again different from before, but no less meaningful. I had stood up that night at the dinner table faced with cruelty and rejection, and made a choice that honored my own worth. That choice had led me here to this expanded sense of family and purpose, to this healing. What has your experience been with family conflicts? Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between keeping the peace and maintaining your dignity? Share your story in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself can be the first step toward healing. Thank you for listening, and remember, it is never too late to rebuild what matters most.